I'd like to call the Thursday, February 16th Budget Committee meeting to order and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just as a formality, Pat, did you have a question?
No, I didn't. I was going to tell you there were no petition warrant articles received.
Right. Yes, there were no petitioned warrant articles received, so we have none to act on in that regard. And there's no desire to review the warrant articles at this point, I don't believe. Very well. The work session on the operating budget is continued, and
Chuck, don't you need to go through asking me those normal questions?
the normal questions, Carol?
Yeah, you usually have to verify where I am and all that.
Oh, well, where are you, Carol?
Satellite Beach, Florida.
What's the address?
I don't think I really want to give that out.
Are you alone?
No, my husband's here.
Very well. All right, are you prepared to continue the work session, Carol?
Yep.
All right, here we go. Are there any other adjustments to the budget that the committee would like to undertake? Naomi?
I'd like to propose...
Oh, excuse me, a little closer to the mic.
I'd like to propose removing the utility costs for the Brentwood building for next year, because it's definitely going to go.
Do we have a second? Okay, that was Naomi Halter with a motion and Ellen with a second. Do you have the number on that, Naomi?
I do, unless Matt wants to give it.
Turn down a chance at the microphone. Yeah, the number is $7,923. Thank you.
Naomi, would you like to speak to your motion?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The building's going to get knocked down, so we don't need to pay for utilities next year. Administration has assured me that it's definitely going to happen, so there's not a need to have them in there just in case, and so we can take them out.
Any other deliberation? Lee?
Just a question. Is there a timeline on this removal of the red building?
That's a Matt question.
Yeah, just sit there for the rest of the
Yeah, just for the record. We've already had around 3 or 4 walkthroughs from various contractors looking at what a potential cost is, and we have one bid already. So we're going to see if we could do it before the summertime. So if we could do it while school's in session. It's not, when we built the addition over here in 2001, school was in session, so we can handle a project like that. As long as we take the proper safety precautions and put fencing around everything and, everybody adheres to all the requirements. So we'd like to get it done before the summertime.
Pat, have you got the number on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Could I ask a question?
You certainly may.
I guess it would be for Matt. Have you decided yet, once it's knocked down, whether that's going to be paved or gravel or what's going to be there?
Well, currently, right now, in the specifications, we just have, do loam and seed. We're gonna do maybe some plantings along the edge so the adjacent house doesn't have a clear shot of all the goings-on of the high school. But right now, it's just gonna be a blank canvas with some loam and seed on it.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, Michelle?
Matt, are there any other expenses dealing with that building that should be considered other than the utilities? Is there insurances on it or anything of the sort that are buried into the budgets and other line items?
The removal of the building from the insurance policy is really kind of insignificant. Our total assets as far as buildings and contents is around $152 million. So that building, which isn't valued as much, really isn't going to make a difference. So once it's gone, we'll take it off.
Thank you. And I guess one more question. When we were here last time or whatever, we had the discussion on this. So now that you've had other contractors come in and kind of take a look at it or whatever, that's why you're more confident now. So we'd had discussion of leaving it there. We still have to have electricity to that building until such time as it does get taken down.
Yeah,
and now
we are exceedingly confident that we can get that building taken down, given the parameters set forth by the school board.
Awesome. Thank you.
Lee?
Matt, I know there was consideration early on about when we leveled that building, providing additional parking for the students in that space, and now it sounds like something has changed with that. Can you explain that, please?
Well, what's going to happen is you haven't seen the master plan yet. Eventually, what's going to go there is a little area called Woodbury Street Extension. So instead of having Brentwood kind of have Woodbury go up the hill, do a jog to your left, and then have the street going between the two buildings, we would move the street right across from Woodbury. So it wouldn't be parking anyway. With the other phases of the plan, there's going to be more than adequate parking in there.
Thank you for that, Matt.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I'll call for a vote. Pat, would you read the roll?
Dan?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
Michelle? Mackey?
Yes.
Mackenzie?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Naomi Halter?
Yes.
Shane?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
And Rachel?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
The motion is affirmed by a unanimous vote. I so declare it. Any other adjustments?
Chuck, I do have the follow-up from last time regarding the half of maintenance person. So I know that we asked.
Would you like to make a motion?
So is it a motion? I want to ask, do I make a motion? Okay, I will make a motion to add a half of a maintenance person into the budget. And we'll ask Matt again to provide that number once we have the motion on the table.
Do we have a second?
I second.
So that was a motion made by Rachel and seconded by Michelle Mackey. Now, you would like to speak to your motion?
Sure. Thank you. So as I stated last meeting, something that I picked up on when we were going through the maintenance budget was that there was only a half of a position filled at the time that that middle school was constructed. And it seems like this is a position that should have been considered at that time as well, to add an additional person, as the new middle school brought on additional indoor space, but also additional outdoor space. So this is a position that would help just with the everyday operations of making sure lawns were mowed, snow is shoveled. This is not for any type of, extras. It's to just, get by and actually maintain that extra space.
I would like to simply state for the record that this is an unusual circumstance where there was not enough time for a confirmation by the school board, but the administration was making a recommendation that this may have been something that had been overlooked in the past and perhaps needed to be rectified at this time, and with due deference to the school board, I accept the motion as proper.
Yeah, if I may at this point in time, if it's appropriate. I talked with Tom Tussell, and a half-time position as opposed to making the half-time current position a full-time position would probably be beneficial to him. Gives him a little more flexibility. So we'd be looking at a $25,000 increase. And when the school was built, it took us around 8 or 9 years to get that 0.5. So, sometimes good things come to those who wait. So, Tom would appreciate it, and I think the voters would appreciate it with more attention to the fields and the grounds and whatnot. So,
is there any other discussion on the motion? Pat, you have that number? Thank you very much. I'll call the roll.
Naomi.
Abstain.
Rachel.
Yes.
Michelle Mackey.
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
Shane.
Yes.
Gina.
Yes.
Chuck.
Yes.
Ellen.
Yes.
Dan.
yes.
Carol.
Yes.
Mackenzie.
Yes.
That is 10-0-1.
10-0-1,
10-0-1.
and so declared. Any other adjustments to the budget?
Can I ask a question before I make a motion?
Absolutely.
Okay. If I make a motion, would you be open to discussing the $150,000 contingency that was added last meeting?
I can't quite hear you, Rachel.
Could we discuss again, if I put a motion up, the $150,000 contingency that was accepted last meeting?
You want to reconsider that motion?
I would like to put that up for a discussion, yes.
Did you vote in favor of it?
I did not.
Then you can't reconsider it.
Okay. That was, okay. Just wanted to make sure before I put a motion up if that was allowed or not. So no, because I did not vote in favor.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch quite all of that. but-
So it's only people that voted for it that could have it be reconsidered.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other adjustments? Going once, twice? I would like to make a motion that we put $25 in next year's budget for a specific purpose called preparation and implementation of the master plan. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I realize that our master plan is just beginning to be implemented. We haven't yet received final reports, but a great deal of activity is taking place around the implementation of that master plan. Most notably by now eliminating the red building and relocating or beginning to prepare for relocating utilities and so forth. There is nothing in the budget for next year relative to preparation or implementation of the master plan. And I felt it was important that we have a specific purpose to make sure that we carry through on that, and it will allow the school board to find funds within the budget as is necessary according to their discretion to keep the master plan rolling along. Deliberation? Yes.
My apologies for being naive. I just want to make sure I understand. The $25 is so that a line item can be added to the budget kind of as a placeholder, so the master plan can continue. So should there be expenses that next year regarding that master plan, the school board has the ability to move funds from line items that maybe have excess amounts in them, or that the full line item that we've budgeted for could be brought over into that master budget line item.
That is correct.
Okay.
Everything in the budget, to be in the budget, must have a specific purpose. And this is to ensure that we don't get caught short. It gives us the flexibility to let the school board at their discretion follow along and support the master plan.
So where they've already been working on the master plan and doing, drawings and those type things, where are those expenses being taken from, or does that not? Does that matter?
That is going to be very quickly answered by our Superintendent of Finance, Matt Chapinel, who is very excited, I might add, about getting something done with moving the old building and relocating utilities and preparing for the parking lot that's coming in the near future and so forth.
I am almost giddy with anticipation, Mr. Mower. Yes, the master plan was an appropriation of around $85,000 that was in the budget from a couple of years ago, pre-COVID. Because of COVID and everything like that, we couldn't really have engineers here looking at traffic patterns of existing, high school kids, because the kids weren't here to create the havoc that we needed to look at. So we encumbered those funds over into this year's budget and the prior year's budget and this year's budget. And so that's just for the drawings and everything like that. We still have some money left in there for the drawings. But Mr. Mower mentioned implementation also. So the master plan itself is going to have several stages. Brentwood is the first domino to drop. Last year, I believe the Budget Committee put $10 in this year's budget for that particular purpose. So it allowed the board to move a certain sum of money toward that line. I think this is kind of the same thing, almost. So if, for instance, the next logical step would be to bury the utilities. And with that, we could do that at an advantageous cost, and the timing was right, and the surplus was there, and we had the funds available in this current year's budget. The school board could authorize us to do such. So, you know, that's the next domino to fall. You need to bury the utilities, put the lighting in, and then come around and then do the pavement later on. So it would allow us to do a portion of it if it was advantageous if we had the surplus and if the board wanted to go in that direction. Was that your thought process?
Thank you very much, Matt.
Yeah.
May I ask something?
Yes, Carol?
I think this is probably for Matt. I have no problem with doing this. I think it's fine, but I'm confused because I used to be under the impression that there had to be a line item before we could actually spend money on something. And a few years ago, I don't recall who it was. It might have been the prayer superintendent. I'm not sure. Somebody told me that it only needed to be a line item in that form that you submit to the state, MS, 27 or something, that it just had to be a line item in that, which is like huge lump sum line item. So which is correct, that it needs to be a line in the actual budget or on that form?
There's nothing in the budget that doesn't have a purpose. And in order to have a purpose, you have to have a line for it.
So what I was told about it only mattering as long as it was included in that huge line item on the form we send to the state, that's not correct?
I think that would be an unreliable rendition of the responsibility.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Pat, would you please call for the vote?
Chuck,
Me? Me?
would you like to vote, sir?
Yes.
Yes, you'd like to vote, or yes, you're voting yes?
Yes, I'd like to vote, and yes, I am voting yes.
Okay. Gina? Yes. Yes. Ellen? Yes. Shane?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Mackenzie?
Yes.
Rachel?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Naomi?
Yes.
That's 11-0-0.
So declared. Any other amendments to the budget? I move that we insert $25 into the budget for a new SAU building. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
This is purely a symbolic motion. We should have had an SAU building by now, and yet here we are without one. To believe that it is anything other than an emergency would be false. It has been for some time. If we were a private corporation, OSHA would be on our backs. Municipal corporations are a little different. If they don't want to do something, it seems that there is no power on earth that can can force them to do something. But we know that we need that type of facility. It has been planned for. It has been brought to the people with a successful majority, and yet not followed up with the necessary 3/5. It's time for us to realize these things aren't something we can defer forever. And just to get it into the public speech again is why I made the motion to put it into the budget. It's something that needs to be ultimately funded. And it's a little tiny bit closer by putting it symbolically into the budget than it was sitting out in some deferred capital improvement plan. And I chose $25 because I expect that in 2025, we may be actually proposing something like that. And so I'm thinking ahead and trying to have the vision that ultimately our educational system, which is so closely connected to our economic conditions, be thought of as something that we need. Any other deliberation? Ellen?
Is it part of the master plan at all?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. That's why I just wanted to clear up, because I thought I remember that. Thank you.
Shane?
I love the symbolism. I wasn't going to vote yes because I don't think we should do it next year, have it in the budget next year, but I agree 100% with the symbolism. Based on our previous discussions with on the master plan, that would be 4 years out if everything goes to plan, which would be 26. So I guess I'm all about the symbolism. If we do want to call it 25 because we think it's in 25, can we propose we just make it 26 if it's truly symbolic and we just want to keep it on track? And
The numbers and the calendar are both symbolic.
fair enough. But yes, I agree.
Ellen? Anybody else? Pat, would you please call the roll?
Gina.
Yes.
Mackenzie.
Yes.
Shane.
Yes.
Lee.
No.
Michelle.
Yes.
Rachel.
No.
Ellen.
No.
Dan.
Yes.
Chuck.
Yes.
Carol.
Yes.
Naomi.
No.
Seven in favor, 4 opposed.
The majority prevails, and it is so declared. Now, we are about to have our public hearing, so if there is anything else that anybody is considering
Go ahead.
about an adjustment to the budget, now would be the time to bring it forward before the public hearing. Seeing none, I will declare
Before you declare a recess, you need to give a number for the operating budget that you're going to tell the public that's here. We need a motion for that.
Thank you, Pat.
And the current amount, Matt, I don't know if you've been keeping track. I get 88,593,813.
Yeah, we started off with 88,568.40. And then we added, we took, I added 79.23 as opposed to, no, I did subtract. The 79.23, then I went to 88,552,917.
That's what I did. I didn't decrease that.
Okay. So I have 88,577,967. I saw a few calculators over there, so if anyone wants to double check that one. $88,577,967.
Okay, say the number again, Matt.
That's what I was asking.
Yep.
The 20, yeah.
Say the number again.
88,577,967. Good? Good.
Okay, everybody's all set with that, thank you. So we need a motion to recommend to the public hearing, warrant article. Are you making that motion, sir?
You're good on the number now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I forgot to put a minus.
I just wanted to make sure, because we won't be able to make any other adjustments after this.
Yes, you will.
There's a possibility, but I'm trying to keep it as straightforward as I can. Yes, as long as it's mentioned before the public hearing, we can discuss it after the public hearing. That's
Mentioned at the public hearing.
at
At
the
the
public hearing.
If anybody has anything else they want to say,
Right.
statute says that it has to be brought up at the public hearing. And then we can deal with it afterwards.
So unless somebody wants to take advantage of that, we will call for a motion on the final budget number.
Second.
Seconded by Gina.
And who made the motion?
Yes.
You?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Shane?
Yes.
Dan? Lee?
Yes.
Gina?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
Chuck?
Yes.
Mackenzie?
Yes.
Rachel?
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Naomi?
Abstain.
That's 10-0-1 to the public hearing, and we'll take a vote after the public hearing again.
All set there, Pat? All right. So I will open the public hearing. Somebody want to give me a time on that? I can't quite see the clock. 7:39. I will open the public hearing for comments from the public.
Hi, my name is Joanne Grobecker. I live at 27 Craig Drive, and I'm here as a private citizen and a mother of 2 elementary school students. I want to thank you all for the work you do to ensure that every student in Merrimack receives an appropriate education. Before I give my parent input, I assured my daughters that I would give their student input as well. My 9-year-old would like us to save money to build a theater at the high school for her to perform in someday. And my 7-year-old enjoyed the police comfort dog, Mac, visiting in her school and would like you to think about saving money for a pet show and tell day in the future. Switching to my parent input now, I know the budget includes a reading interventionist position at all elementary schools, purchase of Foundations, a reading program, 2 fifth-grade teachers, purchase of iReady, the progress monitoring tool, and technology to support the one-to-one devices. These items are all connected to target improving the academic outcomes for students. Currently, the majority of IEPs in Merrimack are for specific learning disability in reading. You have heard at these meetings that over 30% of the 4th grade class has IEPs for reading. Even more students have IEPs and 504s, and the students' main services are for reading. Only 28 kids per school receive Title I reading intervention. We heard at the school board meeting that Title I teachers were serving as long-term subs and not providing reading intervention in some schools. We are currently using special education teachers as the only interventionists for reading. We are pulling students drowning in a sea of illiteracy out of the water with costly interventions too late. The solution is to go upstream and keep them from falling in. By focusing on instruction in general education intervention, we can free up special education funds for students with disabilities and not reading difficulties caused by a lack of intervention in general education. Our math program, everyone knows, is very language heavy, and that's why you'll see there's a direct correlation in 7th grade, students that are not great at reading but are great at math, their math scores drop off in 7th grade. And those numbers, if you look on the DOE dashboard, you'll see in Merrimack those numbers across the state, but specifically in Merrimack took a dive last year. Kids who are no longer successful at reading or math because of their reading disabilities, because of their reading difficulties, impact the school behaviors, the dropout rate, and other difficulties that you see in the upper grades. I'm hopeful when you look at this budget, you think of the positive changes that are being made in literacy and how funding reading interventionists, 5th grade teachers, and a reading curriculum will pay dividends in the future. Teaching a child to read will change the trajectory of a student's life. We have the opportunity with this budget this year to put students on the right course. I want to thank you all. I watch all the meetings, and I want to thank you for your diligence and all the time you take to review this. I hear you all debating a 12-year plan for round cafeteria tables, and I see you at home, and I appreciate the diligence that you take for my child's education. This, especially being so cognizant of the taxpayers during this economic time that we're in. This budget is an enormous undertaking, and I'm very impressed with how thorough you all have been. I want to thank you for the role you play in ensuring our students receive an appropriate education in the Merrimack Public Schools. And keep in mind my students' requests for theater and a pet show and tell day for future budgets. But I just want to thank you all for all that you're doing. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming forward. Are there any other public comments?
say something, or is it only public? Chuck, can I say something, or is it only public?
Oh, no, go ahead.
So just on behalf of the Budget Committee and myself, thank you for being so involved in your children's education and concern for your entire community. I know that, you know, with elementary, the girls go to different schools, so it's wonderful that you're so involved. I wish everyone was as involved with you as you, and we really appreciate you coming out and sharing your comments. I second the pet day. I think the BudCom should have a pet day where we can all bring our pets here too. Yeah, yeah, yep, oh yeah, and yep, yeah. It was a good idea. And also I do agree with you, Joanna, I've seen myself personally that as, not even at 7th grade, younger, when the math problems move from straight calculations to word problems, and you already have difficulty learning, the math skills go down. And, you know, students who were originally only in an IEP for reading then get math added to that curriculum as well. So I wholeheartedly agree with what you say. But again, thank you for coming, and thank you for participating.
Any other comments from the public? Matt, you think you could come forward and explain the default budget, please?
Thank you very much. When SB2 took a hold years and years ago, there was a move where it changed the process, where we had the traditional town and school district meeting where you voted on the budget to having a vote by ballot. And that necessitated a couple of safeguards in there, and one of them is, what do you do if you only have one number for an operating budget, and if that operating budget fails? You know, how do you continue operations? So the default budget was defined at that point in time is basically last year's approved budget, less any items of a one-time nature, any special warrant articles, and then adding in items that are contractual and required by law. So we start off with the budget for 22-23 of $87,037,596. As you recall, there was a warrant article in there for a roof at Thornton's Ferry, $1.4 million. We subtract that number. There was also debt service. The interest on the middle school bond decreased by $44,000, so we decreased the default budget by that amount. Next year it's going to be much higher because you know, that'll be the last year. Well, whenever the last year for the interest payment for the middle school goes away, that's going to affect the default by a like amount. Health insurance and transportation is up $560,000. Contracted salaries for the support staff. We pretty much level funded all the support staff. With the exception of the office staff. They're under the Merrimack Educational Support Staff Agreement, and they're in the second year of their contract. And so that was an increase of $46,000. Food service is a pass-through account, so the increased cost of food was reflected with an increased revenue amount, and that's $122,000. And then special services. Everything that's in the special services budget is dictated by federal law, mandated by IEPs, et cetera. And so that was an increase of $540. And because we have to heat and put lights and utilities in these buildings and maintain a healthy, safe environment per Ed 3 something in the DOE regs, the increase in maintenance and utilities for just upkeep and maintenance of the buildings and grounds was $304,000, so that's another addition. So in the end, you see in your warrant article that the default budget is $87,169,047, and that's how that calculation was arrived at.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Pat, we're required to have the full half hour, aren't we? No? Good. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to the public hearing about the operating budget for 23-24? Yes. Michelle Mackey.
As I've stated in a couple other meetings, aside from being on this committee, I too have children in the Merrimack School District, and I think it's important for anybody that watches this or talks to people amongst the community that that when you hear, you know, a budget item of, you know, 88 million, right? People are taken aback, thinking that's a lot of money, and where is all this money going, and is it really needed, and what do we really need? But I think it's really important for the voters that go out and vote in April to really understand what is behind that $88 million number, right? The town, the school board, the administration, us on this committee are very conscious about the numbers that get put into this budget and how it affects the town and the taxpayers and the children that go to the schools and what's put in there. And we're trying to do what's best for the kiddos now in town, as well as foresee some things in the future, right, that they're going to need, and that's going to be needed, and i.e. when it comes to building and technology and those type things. So I am willing, if there are folks out there that, you know, want to make a little bit more of an informed decision when they go to the polls in April, especially if they're thinking that, well, I'm going to vote for the default budget because that's the cheaper of the two, to have a conversation about what the implications are of, you know, going to the default budget versus the one that we're setting forth for the next school year. Because, again, I think it's really important that the things that are put in are helping the people of this town, not just the kids, but also the other residents and, you know, the future of what's going to happen in the town of Merrimack and where our students are compared to other school districts in the state, as well as surrounding states and those type of things. So.
Thank you. Those are particularly thoughtful remarks, Michelle. I appreciate them. Naomi?
I can't remember if I've said this for
A
this
little
committee.
closer to the mic, please.
I'll pull my chair closer. I can't remember if I've said this for this committee or not. I know I said it in one of the school board meetings about this budget. This budget, it's a lot of bang for your buck. This budget has a less than 2% increase, and all of those new programs that we're adding are going to have really big impacts on our students. And I know, Michelle, you just touched on this, but in a climate where we've got inflation that's like 8%, and we've got a budget that's only going up 2%, and we're going to have all these great benefits, it's a really good budget. And I would just second what Michelle said of, you know, if anybody has questions or wants to talk about it or hear about the initiatives that the school board and the district are doing to improve outcomes for kids in Merrimack, I would love to have those conversations.
Thank you. I also,
May I say something, Chuck?
certainly. Go ahead, Carol.
One thing, too, that I think needs to be factored into a lot of these interventions we're taking is it was no one's fault, but due to COVID, our quality of education definitely suffered. And now we're making up for those deficits. And that's a big undertaking. So part of these new programs and such are trying to address those deficits. So I think it's definitely in the best interest of the students to try to bring them up to at least where they were pre-COVID, if not better.
Thank you, Carol. I would also like to chime in and explain that, yes, it's a lot of money when I'm sitting at my kitchen table. I will never see that amount of money in my lifetime. But it's not about my kitchen table, it's about a municipal corporation. It's about the well-being of our economy, well-being of our citizens, and that is Main Street. All of this money goes into Main Street and produces real results. Very often, people who do not have students in our system feel that they're not getting anything for their money, but they surely are. They are getting competent citizens in their community. They're getting the next generation of leaders in their community. They're getting the hope that perhaps has escaped many of us in the past and remains to be there and available for the future of our community, because the vast majority of us are yet to come here. And so I'd like to think that this committee has done an excellent job this year. I appreciate all of your hard work, and I think that we have done the very best we can for the citizens of Merrimack. I'd like to publicly thank you all. Any other comments? Yes, Lee.
The subject of the Performing Arts Center has come up several times in discussions, and Joanne, thank you again for bringing that up. It's weighed heavily on my mind, and I do believe in our future it is something that we should consider. It seems to have a lot of community support from the people that I've discussed it with. And in your same vein of making a motion to put a line item in the budget, I think it would be fair to do the same for a performing arts center in case we come across a property or some other way to advance this initiative. So I would put a motion to a $25 addition to the budget for a performing arts center.
If there are no other comments for the public hearing, I will now close the public hearing. And I will ask Lee if he would like to make a motion to adjust the budget.
I would like to make a motion to adjust the budget by adding $25 for a performing arts center.
I'll second that.
We have a second. It was Shane? Motion by Lee, seconded by Shane. Go ahead and speak again to your motion, Lee.
As I mentioned, I think there's a lot of community support for this and the people that I've discussed it with. And leaving a line item in the budget would allow the school board to make a move if a property or some other option came available for them to pursue that interest.
Comments? Deliberation? Ellen?
I'm working on this. I was actually going to do something like that next year, because I don't think this year is the year to do it, because we have the master plan and things, but, you know, Lee gets all excited. So I've had some conversations with some members in the community who hold very strong persuadability, we shall say. I also had a conversation with Matt and with Mr. Claire, and the first step is really making the community aware of it and then getting community support, because it's not going to be 100% school budget funded, right? And then the grand plan for any successful performing arts center, I don't know if people are into it or not or understand, but you don't just put up a building like you put up a gymnasium. You put up a building that it can also create revenue for the school district. So it's not going to be a tax liability, it's also going to be a money maker. So you need to be able to have a building that you can rent out, that all the schools can use, that the community can use, and that we can attract people, that you could host dance recitals in a larger, bigger auditorium, that you could hold the music recitals, you could hold state functions where you get money and things like that. So it's a bigger plan. So yes, it is a good idea. And I know I vote no a lot, but I do happen to know a lot of people, and one of them, I won't call her out, but we've also spoken to some grant writers, and that's what I let Matt know, that we were willing to help with that and help the school accomplish it when the time came. But that was in my pocket for next year.
Any other deliberation on the motion?
I agree with exactly what Ellen said, and having daughters who are in gymnastics, who are in dance, they're constantly looking for places to have recitals. It would be great for us to offer another local option that would benefit not only our children in this community, but other communities as well. So I think it's, you know, it's a great idea to think not only of what it could benefit our school, but how it could benefit the larger community. So good work, Ellen. Now bring cookies. Thanks.
Yes, Naomi.
Right, forgot. I think this is a thing that personally, I mean, the school board has batted it around, and I agree that it's a thing we want to look into. I feel like personally, we're kind of working on one thing at a time, and I'm going to vote no, and I feel really bad about voting no because, like I said, it's totally something that I want us to explore, but I think next year is the right time. I think we've done a lot this year, and I think just, you know, one foot in front of the other, and this is a little bit farther down the road project, and I thank you for doing all that work and talking to people about it. That's awesome.
As the facilitator, I have to remind you that this is a symbolic vote. Well, I would like to add, Rachel? No, go by all means. I'm the facilitator.
Okay.
You're the guys that get to speak.
Thank you, Chuck. And thank you, Ellen, for doing some legwork already on this, and thank you, Lee, for putting up the motion. I, too, also love the idea and agree with it, but I'm, you know, I agree with everything that Ellen and Naomi said, too. So I understand the symbolism of it, but I also don't want to overcrowd that symbolism of putting up an SAU. But right, there's a lot that we know that we could do to improve this district, and I just don't want it to come all at once, where everybody's like, how are we going to accomplish this, right? So I'm going to vote no, even though I'm fully in support of it, but I think that this is such a bigger project that it needs to really, you know, start forming the legs now with no funding, you know, doing what we can, and then, you know, move on with it next year.
I think your fear of it all coming at once is misplaced. It surely won't all come at once.
Well, maybe the lottery winners watching.
Right.
Don't want their name on a building or a hunk of land.
Then I would believe it would all come at once, but yeah.
Any other deliberation? Okay.
I'm also going to vote no. I seconded it just so we can hear the discussion. But I do get scared, and you mentioned it last week about the whole, you know, let's take things slow. And I get it. But, you know, when I came on the board, I think it was 25 years we've been talking about this SAU. It hasn't gotten done. The first budget was like $500,000. 2 years ago, it was $3.5 million. I think they just went out for bid. It was like $7 million. So I just get scared of that, continue to kick the can. But I'm 100% with you guys. But also, I understand what you're saying, Chuck.
It's the battle of the performing arts and the turf field over there.
Well, I would like to chip in and say that we are 12 elected representatives, 13 with our able liaison, representing citizens that have actually voted for us. Now, perhaps they did know what they were doing, or perhaps they didn't know what they were doing, but we are nevertheless here as community leaders. And I think it's important. Yes, we very soberly undertook the budget and arrived at a figure that we felt was prudent. But beyond that, I think it's exceptionally important that our community know that we aspire to something. We want to be more than we have been. We want to tell someone who says, don't give up your day job, that there's a resonance in us that wants these things, because we're a diverse town, and we're a big town. We're a successful town, and yet we haven't ever really gotten that third pair of pants and the vest for our suit. We do need to aspire to things, and we do need to let people know that we care deeply about the future and the vision of our community. We're not just happy paying the bills every month. We want our community to be something. And that's why I'm going to support Lee's motion. Mackenzie?
I would have to agree with what Shane said, as well as some others, and I personally will probably vote no on this motion. I think we have a lot that we're trying to do right now and accomplish, and I think it's just too much too soon. While I think that these meetings are recorded and are available for our outside people to attend, I think it's also important for them to know that, I don't want to say there's priorities per se, but I think we really need to make sure that we put forward what we already have in place and what we're trying to work on. And while I was in band in high school and starting in 5th grade, all through my high school years, and I was also heavily involved in the performing arts as well, I think I'd love to see this happen, and I think it's important for our kids, kids who are involved in dance, kids who are involved in music and band. And again, I'd love to see that happen, but I really think we need to concentrate what we're trying to do right now. And I just don't want it to be too much too soon, and I really want it to be fruitful and be able to see the work that we're doing and the work that we'll put into that Performing Arts Center. But I think right now it's just too much all at one time.
There is nobility in diligence. Any other comments? Lee?
I appreciate all the conversation and the discussion. I really do. I struggled with whether or not to put this in this year's bill. I see it as a little bit more than symbolic, honestly. I see it as a first step to the process, giving the school board the opportunity if it arises. And that's what pushed me to put it in this year's budget rather than wait another year. I understand that there is Ellen working on some really good things, and I fully support you and will be happy to help in any way I can. So I see it as a little bit more than just a symbolic gesture, but really as an opportunity if one should arise in the future in this school budget year. Thank you.
Michelle Mackey.
You just took some of the words out of my mouth. I actually support what you're saying, Lee, because I think it's important. Chuck, I think on numerous occasions as we've gone through this in the last couple of months, of going through this budget, that we need to be conscious of we're just not working and looking in a vacuum of next year's budget, but we also have to think ahead in the budgets to come and in the years to come. And I think adding this line item to the budget shows that we're not just taking the 1 year at a time approach, that we're actually looking at the bigger picture, even though it may not, anything may come of it for years to come, because we do have other priorities. And, you know, Ellen's doing an awesome job with what she's doing, Some things can move quicker, some things may take longer, but at the end of the day, we've proven with the Brentwood building and having years and years and years of conversations of the SAU building, right? I think that just goes to show that it's there. We've made a point to make it be there, just so people can see that it's out there and start talking or having discussions, but it may not be something that moves for another 2 or 3 years, but at least we're letting the people of the town know that the conversations can start to be had. So I will support this, Lee.
I agree. I do support also, and like I said, it's not just from personal experience with having kids, you know, in the performing arts, but I do think that this line item, it's not going to take away from what we're trying to accomplish now. I think we're very focused and we know what we need to do now. And, you know, we certainly don't want to see the theater become another red building, but I think that, you know, Michelle made a really good point. You know, we're here to look at the budget, not just on a short-term basis, but on a long-term basis, looking into the future of what kind of improvements and enhancements that we could make for the community, and keeping that, you know, forethought there, listening to what people are saying, because there are so many people out there that are talking about this theater possibility. So I completely understand where everybody else is coming from, and I respect everyone's opinions. But I will be voting yes.
Yes, Rachel.
Can I just ask a question? And I don't know if this is something, Shane, you might be able to answer it, or Matt, you might be able to answer it. Is the master plan solely just focused on this area and the Brentwood building? Yes, okay, so even if it was something where just as complex, so theoretically, could you, you know, start to get ideas and, you know, if you had to go contract something out to get, I don't know, quotes, whatever you need to, like, you know, start the legs of this, could that fall under some of that line item in this budget where we're not, you know, adding necessarily, but, you know, there is an option for that to happen should something come up?
Well, I think how this typically might be undertaken would be for the school board recognizing that there was some interest in having some kind of performing arts building of some kind, to give it to the Planning and Building Committee to review. It's been my experience that Planning and Building has been very diligent in exploring all possibilities relative to a task that the school board gave to them. Alternatives and options and all of those kinds of things have been very, very deliberative. And they are also an elected office in the community. So I think that's probably where the first substantive conversations might take place.
Does the Planning and Building Committee expend funds from this budget? So would there be an option for that Planning and Building Committee to expend funds if funds were needed to start some of that planning? I guess is my question.
Maybe I would turn to Shane relative to the Planning and Building Committee.
Yeah, and I can't speak to all the details just because I don't know yet, but I can say that this is not part of the plan. And based on the plan that I do know, it kind of needs to be a separate thing for property reasons as well as timing. It's just to roll that in, Matt could probably add. We did talk about locations and things where it could go. But yeah, it probably should stay separate, in my opinion.
The bringing it up in the the school district planning and building committee, which is an elected body of, I think, 12, 13 people when it's all full? 6? Okay. Well, there are some openings, and it is an interesting committee. It has a great membership and a great history here. I think we are the only school district in the state that has an elected school district planning and building committee. And their main purpose is to look at large capital improvements. So what they produce is a document called the Capital Improvement Plan, which is any item over $100,000 in nature. So this would be a perfect place to start to vet that at their table and talk about it and see if it would go into the CIP in some future slot, as the central office has been in the capital improvement plan, as the roof for Thornton's Ferry last year was in the CIP plan. That's the appropriate spot for it. Now, do they have the authority to make expenditures? The answer to that is no. They do not, only the school board.
The Planning and Building Committee makes recommendations. They don't have a budget. They make recommendations and then they present them to the school board.
That's what I thought, I just wanted to confirm that.
Yeah, yeah, if it's a committee. Yeah, but there are 6 of them and there is a liaison from the school board. And this year it's Lori Rothaus, who used to be a member of the Planning and Building Committee before she went on to the school board.
Any other comments? Pat, would you please call the roll?
Naomi,
No.
Ellen,
No.
Rachel,
No.
Mackenzie,
No.
Chuck,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Gina,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Shane,
Yes.
$7 in favor, 4 opposed.
It passes
And,
by a
excuse me,
majority,
no,
and
I-
it is so declared.
Yes, it is 7-4.
Well, let's tally up and get the final number on the operating budget.
Go.
88,577, 992.
Okay. Matt, say that again?
I have 88,577, 992.
Thank you. Okay. Yes.
Now, we will be voting to recommend an operating budget for the warrant for school district meeting.
Can you repeat that total, please?
$88,577,992.
I would add that while all of the committee members are free to vote as they wish, that as this is the final recommended warrant article from this body, I would appreciate unanimity on the final number.
I need a second on your motion, though.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dan.
Deliberation? Pat, please call the roll.
Chuck,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Ellen. Yes. Shane,
Yes.
Naomi,
Yes. Abstain.
I should have brought you some wine.
yeah, she doesn't have. Lee,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Dan.
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
and Gina.
Yes.
That's 12-0, or excuse me, 11-0-1.
So declared. We're going to approve some minutes.
Please.
Do you want to get me off the phone first so you don't have to do roll calls?
You don't want to participate in the approval of minutes, Carol?
You want roll calls?
I'm perfectly willing to if you want me there. If you want to expedite things by having me get off, that's fine too. It's your call.
No, the choice is yours, Carol.
All right, I'll stay on.
Okay.
All right, any revisions, recommendations, adjustments, whatever, in any of the minutes?
How about a motion?
Make a motion?
A motion to approve them.
I'm sorry, somehow I thought we did, but, no? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve
Thank
the
you,
minutes, Mr. Mueller.
Mackenzie. Second by Shane. Deliberation on the minutes. Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Okay. Naomi,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Shane,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Mackenzie,
Yes.
Chuck,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Gina,
Yes.
Lee.
Yes.
That's unanimous. 12-0-0.
So declared. Comments from the members? Seeing none, I am obliged to remind you that we need to be signing the MS-27 before the 27th of February.
Matt said it would be available next Thursday?
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. So it's at the superintendent's office. You have to, we bring this up because we need a majority of this budget committee to sign it. And if anybody has any questions about it, in years past, people have refused to sign it because they voted against it or da-da-da-da-da. Statute just requires that a majority of the budget committee signs this document. It just says that the number that there is the number that the committee voted on.
And I would remind everybody that filing period for elective office is February 22nd to March 3rd. And the deliberative session and budget committee meeting are on, or is on, March 6th. Dan?
No.
You were a fortunate man.
Well, I don't know, the last time it was flooding, but I'll take it. I have 3 grandkids out there. But I'm leaving Tuesday, so somehow signing that isn't going to work for me, so I don't know what you want me to do. I'm in favor, I'm all in favor of signing. Sorry, we'll get it done.
Yeah.
We'll get it done.
Because I've never shown up yet, because I can never make the time.
That doesn't
It still
really.
goes.
Yeah.
It's okay. School office is open.
And they're actually accommodating.
Carol?
If somebody wants,
Good
if
night.
somebody calls and lets Sandy know I can't get
Good
them
night.
until
Thank you
X,
very
she'll
much.
wait.
All right.
But just for the record, somebody asked, we are not in this meeting for deliberative session. Deliberative session, or in this room, I mean, deliberative session is at the upper elementary. And that's our next meeting, is after that meeting, we gather together and if there's anything changed, as well as approve the minutes of tonight.
March 6th, the next meeting, I can be.
Yes, that is a posted meeting. That is a posted meeting. There are there's tables up in the front with, and chairs up in the front for you to sit at and be acknowledged at the meeting. What? It is 7 PM. I cannot
You're
tell
the
you when
second
the Budget
luckiest
Committee
person.
meeting will be, because deliberative session we have to discuss the warrant articles and then go from there. And then we meet.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn by Ellen,
Dan, you got
seconded
one
by
in.
Dan. Pat, would you call the roll?
Oh, can I just say something for all the newbies? They won't let you into that session without your ID. I had to have Lee vouch for me.
Okay, all those in favor of adjourning, raise your hand. By a majority, we are adjourned. Thank you.
So declared.
So declared.
So declared.